and intercept new thoughts from the ethers that's being activated by the chosen ones, chosen people.
What's your thoughts on these this Lionsgate that's coming up? I see some people mentioning Lionsgate in the chat. This Lionsgate portal. What's your thoughts on that? 88.
I believe it's basically the precursor to the new energies coming in. You're talking about the open vortex.
The
open vortex is around the time when you had the Montauk Project and things of that nature, when they did those experiments or whatever. But there's I think I brought it up in the last time we spoke, but there's portals that open up on this planet in 10-year increments. It goes from 1943, 53, 63, 73, 83, 93, all the way to 2023. And it starts around like August 12th, all the way to August 18th. So these new energies is coming in. That is going to be the beginning points of these new your ascension process.
I think somebody I think he just Ratio Brother Rich, please ask the God if he has any thoughts on the flaring energies coming through this Lionsgate.
Oh yeah,
he just broke that down. Shout out to Ascending Infinite Goddess. I seen her at the awards. Shout out to that sister right there, always showing support. She calls up sometime when we have the live question and answer. So shout out to that sister right there. Let's get to, we're gonna do 2 more questions, then we're gonna get out of here. I don't understand. I see somebody keep putting this question. I don't understand this. Let me see if you understand it. BDELL, they asking, are the Anunnaki finding the war underground to free UTTU from the Getty? Do you understand what they talking about? I
don't know what that is. I don't know if they talking about Utu. Utu is another sun.
Oh, okay.
It's another sun, or I don't know what the Getty is, but there are underground wars. You have underground Anunnaki, the Denakals, which is kind of connected to the Yakub story and things of that nature.
What they call the Nakals?
The Denakal tribe.
Yeah.
You have the Denakal. It's part of the same concept when you had 200 fallen angels, when you understand the book of Enoch, and then some went inside the planet when you had great calamity. They went inside the planet in order to escape, the afflictions that was on the surface. You have Taro, and you got the Shiuk, which is the Denakal tribe. There are basically branches of the Anunnaki that came to this planet.
I see somebody commented on the James Webb telescope. What's your thoughts on that? You think that's a bunch of bullshit? Do you think it's revealing something? Then they're lying about some? How accurate do you think?
I haven't looked into that. Like what they saying about it.
They're saying they're able to see space like they were never able to see space before. I think they spent $20 million to make this telescope. So this is like this telescope is giving them a brand new perspective on space right now. They can see clearer images. So they're saying a lot. It's supposed to be a groundbreaking for the NASA community. So
interesting. I haven't looked into it. So, but just from my perspective, I really think this planet is a lot bigger than what people say. Like, space is also a concept that's outside of the fermented dome that we're living in. Because this is only one of the land masses. You how you ever looked into the land mass beyond the ice wall? So, like I said, it's I don't believe like the Earth is flat. I think it's a lot bigger than what they say. I think it's an Earth with many different Earths outside the firmament.
Why do you think when we were young and we break up with somebody, like we go out with somebody, I'm dating a girl or a girl's dating a guy, after we break up, we refer to that person as our ex? Is there, what reasoning would you think there's for the language to refer to somebody you used to mess with on a sexual level, on an intimate level, as your ex?
Transformation, rebirth. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those things where, you see people in toxic relationships, they subjected into that energy, and you like, now I get a rebirth. Now I get to take my power back. I get to take my energy back. So, you know what I'm saying? Now I can focus on something else, whether it's like a form of alchemy. Because you see certain people, when they get out of bad relationships, they start losing weight. And stuff like that. So it's a form of revitalization. It's a form of transformation. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where, like, man, that's my ex. That's the past.
Yeah, that's the past.
We're on a different type of time.
Wow. Yeah, man. This is a hell of a show tonight, y'all. This was an amazing show. BDELL got business to take care of tonight. So I want to be respectful, and I don't want to keep the brother long, but wow, I'm glad. Such an interesting conversation, a very unique conversation. Very unique conversation. So I want to thank you, my brother. Tell the people how they can reach you, my brother. Your YouTube channel or any other way they can reach you, and any shows you got coming up that you might want to let them know about.
Okay, you can reach me at BDELL1014, BDELL1014 on all platforms. My next YouTube video, I'm gonna be this is basically gonna be a precursor to the next video. I'm talking about the mysteries or the esoteric aspects of the letter X. So we're gonna be breaking all that down where we're talking about pestilence, solar flares, cosmic radiation that creates genetical upgrades. We're going to be breaking everything down. So that's going to be my next video.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Hey, family, I want to thank you for tuning in. I got Wesley Muhammad is coming on to tomorrow night, family. So
very different on the planet.
Right.
Because the spiritual significance of the sun pulsating is that it basically vibrates the third eye. So when you understand that the inception of human consciousness is an orb of light, which is your ethereal state, right? That works in tandem with the energy of the sun. So one thing you got to understand is that Metatron's cube basically sucks up microscopic waves of energy that basically subjugates the magnetic field of the body. So when the body is in a form of spiritual subjugation, which is a form of spiritual entrapment, it basically subjugates the capillary fields. The capillary fields are basically beams of electrons that work off transverses of light of electrical energy that implements acceleration of plasma energy that works in tandem with the carbon body by way of magnetism. So the magnetism in itself works in tandem with the sun, because like I said, we all know that carbon is the building block of all civilization. So with that being said, this is a time of karmic retribution, whether you think it, whether you speak it. It's one of those things where the ethers is being activated by way of manifestation. So as I was saying before, you know, ever since the solar eclipse, that was basically the black sun passing off a purifying energy to the sun simulator. So it's basically, you know, opening up the doors of the interstellar gateways that takes you to the higher dimensions, not just on the physical perception, but based on a mental perception as well.
So the sun we see in the sky is the sun simulator. That's what you're referring to.
Yeah,
as the sun.
basically opposite. The reason I got that concept because there's a sigil in the Freemasonic rites. They show you that there is a spiritual sun outside of the dome, which is the star Polaris, and then you got the sun and the moon that's basically connected to the dualistic paradox of the energy extraction matrix. So it's basically working off fractions of light from the spiritual sun that's out of the dome. And then you also, it also shows the womb of creation, the black sun. So that's why I said the black sun passed off an energy to the sun simulator for the great purifier. So this is in conjunction with the Hopi prophecy as well. When you're talking about the blue star Kachina, which is the 9th and final sign before the great day of purification.
What would be what's the great day of purification?
It's basically like a purifier. So anytime that you speak truth, the truth has an octave vibration that works in tandem with the sun. So when you understand that, you know, ancient Proto-Semitic languages, ancient Moabite languages, it's all connected to the alphabetical symmetry of light. So when you have an octave vibration that connects with the sun by way of magnetism, because ancient Proto-Semitic languages are basically highly magnetic. So the European Albion dialect in itself is an electrical language. So that's why a lot of times we're not able to manifest the way we're supposed to. You can manifest, you know, just by way of the energy of your, you know, your mind being in alignment with, you know, with your goals and your manifestations or whatever. But we'll be able to manifest a lot more, you know, intrinsically if we was tapped into our octave languages, tonal languages.
What would be an example of an octave tonal language, you think, in antiquity?
Ancient Moabite, ancient Proto-Semitic, all those languages. So that, like I said, it's a pulsating energy with the sun that's going on right now. It's a pulsating energy. So like I said, it connects you to the ethers. That's what this is all about. Anything that you speak, anything that you think is going to manifest a lot more faster than it did 5 to 10 years ago. Just like the guy, I know you've seen that that cop he unalived a young boy, a black boy, and he was going for his information in a glove department, and the cop killed him. And then the father turned around and did the same thing to the cop's daughter on prom night. So, like I said, it's a form of karmic retribution with many different things that takes place, because negative energy begets negative energy, positive energy begets positive energy. It all depends on what vibration that you're projecting out, in the simulation.
Wow, what an earful. What you mentioned the blue star Kachina. What was that? You put up a video and it's flowing all over TikTok of a girl was in, I think, Portugal.
Yeah.
And his blue comet came flashing through the sky.
Yep.
What was that? What was that? Because you put, what was that exactly?
Well, in my opinion, I think that was one of the ninth and final signs or whatever, because I got many different publications that basically talks about when you study astronomy, meteors or comets or asteroids are not really blue. So in my opinion, I think that was kind of the ninth and final sign before the Great Purification period, because now when the precursor to what's going on right now, you got 6 planets that's basically in alignment right now, and that happens like every 100 years. So this phenomenon and all these celestial anomalies that's taking place, this is, it's not a coincidence that it's actually taking place during the karmic year of 2024, which is known as the 8 year. So everything is a form of karmic retribution. So like I said, that's in alignment with the Great Purification. And then you also heard about those 9 pillars of light that was in Japan. You heard about that?
No, what happened with that?
It was they showed like different beams of energy coming from the sky. It was 9 pillars of light. And then it's also not a coincidence that during that time period you had Japan, they're looking for so-called black men to basically procreate with their women for $75,000, right? So that means that the pulsating energy of the sun has the ability to break down the genetics of the people who are not basically connected to the planet. When you understand the recessive genetical traits and the delineation between 6 ether and 9 ether.
Indeed. Wow.
Go
ahead.
So what I'm saying is, like, the pulsating energy of the sun is like it's a certain vibration and energy on the planet, and it works in tandem with our reproductive organs, and it works in tandem with our mental faculties as well.
So if it works in tandem with our reproductive organs, the souls that are coming to the planet at this time, are they coming from a place where all other souls on this planet didn't come from, since the sun is blinking at this time? Like, where are these souls coming from?
Well, that's a good question. I can't really, specify, where the souls are actually coming from, but I know that sun is basically an interstellar vortex portal that's taking us to the interstellar gateway of the higher dimension. So we're going to have access to all these things that was, as far as the inception point of the spiritual cutoff that took place. So like I said, you got the firmament breaking down in increments. So all these fractions of light, these gamma radiations that's hitting the planet, all this transversing into a 5th dimensional civilization. So this is why they want to merge humans with cybernetics. This is why they want to, implement transhumanism and things of that nature, because they know that the mental faculties and our spiritual gifts works in tandem with the pulsating sun. So it's another way, because technology locks down DNA.
Technology locks down DNA.
Technology locks down DNA. It's what you call the silver key. The silver key, which is the lunar light lock energy. So like I said, it's one of those things where, as far as like Elon Musk, when he's trying to implement Neuralink or whatever, because I was telling people before, God is the highest extension of the mind, which uses elements and matter to express itself. So when your mind is working in tandem with cybernetics, you're not able to tap into your God power by way of the mental stargate. All that is connected to the energy of the sun. So they, like I said, they know that the planet is basically transmuting into a 5th dimensional civilization by way of the energy of the sun that's operating in fractions of light with the star outside of the dome.
When was the last time this planet was a 5th dimensional civilization?
I say back during the time of Atlantis.
So
during the time of Atlantis. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going back to that, like the consciousness is going to be on level of the Atlantis.
Yeah. Matter of fact, there's a movie that came out it was because a lot of people's their perception of a fifth dimensional civilization is by way of, because things are basically producing intrinsically on a technological level on the planet. There's a movie that came out where you could hear people's thoughts, literally. So where they weren't able to speak, you would be able to see a person and you'd be able to hear their thoughts, and you won't have to speak. It's kind of like a telepathic language where you have genetic abilities and things of that nature. That energy is going to come right back to the planet by way of the energy of the sun. So like I said, this all works in conjunction with our spiritual gifts, because our spiritual gifts works in tandem with our sexual power. So like, as I was telling you before in the mental Stargate video that I was putting out, your sexual biological fluids is your cosmic fuel, for astral travel. So this is like I said, they want, you can't spill the cup of Hermes. Hermes is Melchizedek. Melchizedek is Thoth. So the spirit of Melchizedek, they want you to spill your cup of Hermes, because when your cup is not full, that means that you're basically subjugated by the three-dimensional construct of the matrix. You know what I'm saying? You got too many holes inside your aura to where you leak out energy. So that's why I'm saying, like, your sexual power works in tandem with our spiritual gifts, and your spiritual gift works in tandem with the pulsating sun.
Wow.
So it's like a trilateral connection.
Yeah. So sexual discipline is absolutely necessary at this time.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Sexual discipline, semen retention or whatever. But this is why they propagate people like Sexy Red, and they do all the sexual proclivities and sexual degradation and sexual gratification. That's why they implement that. Because like I said, it's not a coincidence that, when you watch, sexually gratifying type of, when people who watch porn or whatever, it's not a coincidence they call it XXX, because they know that our X gene is acclimated to our spiritual gifts.
Indeed.
That's not a coincidence they call it X-Men. Because they could have, they could have called it YYY, ZZZ. Why would you call it XXX?
I asked you that question. We did a show on the power of X. Remember that show we did on the power? Yeah, and we brought that up. We was talking about that's powerful, yo. That's some powerful shit. That's why they call it XXX. Wow. Damn.
So like I said, as far as going back into the correlation of the sexual energy, like I said, the more intense the sun gets, the more it's going to give power to the carbon body, and the more it's going to dematerialize the recessive genetical traits of the beings who are on the planet. That coincides with the book of Leviticus when you're talking about the Canaanites. That coincides with, certain demographics of people who have the sixth ether genetical properties, because sixth ether dissipates into nothingness. Non-ether is only in a state of evolution. It puts you in a state of evolution. So it's going to be a time period where they're going to need to recruit a lot more black men. This is just an hors d'oeuvre of what's happening on the planet right now, but they're going to try to do it a lot more, because they know our energy and our genetics is connected to that sun. Carbon is the building block of all civilization. So they have to extract our energy. They have to extract our vitality, and by many ways of eugenics and things of that nature.
Do you think, will this pulsating sun that's connected to our reproductive organs, will this pulsating sun increase our sex drive? Like most definitely. Okay. All right.
Most definitely. Because like I said, I think Rod Hayes, he said something about like the Birkeland current. It's like it has your sexual energy, especially the woman's intrinsic sexual energy. It has an orgone energy. So when your sexual energy is intact and you controlling it, because you're not subjugated by the emotions of the matrix system, when you're able to control your sexual energy, you can control the weather. You know what I'm saying? That's just the physiology of the woman. You know what I'm saying? Her genetics, the divine feminine energy works in tandem with Mother Nature. But the inception of that energy works in tandem. Like I said, you got to control your sexual power. That's what it's all about. Because they know that we're converting from the visible light spectrum of the energy of green by converting to blue. Blue is the great purifier. You purify yourself by not connecting yourself to the outside forces and outside simulation. You got to control everything all around you. Because as I was telling you before, the spirit of Melchizedek is based upon 3 different faculties. You got the neophyte stage, then you got the adept, and then you become a master. You don't become a master until you master yourself in this realm by way of detachment. So if you're not able to detach yourself from the food, detach yourself from many different things that are basically forms of distraction, it's going to be harder to tap into that interstellar gateway of the mental stargate. Because I was telling people before, you know, a person would tell you that the sky is purple if the color blue hurts their feelings. So you got to be in alignment. Your logic and your mind, you know, everything has to be working in tandem with the planet.
Wait, give me a second. I'm showing right now. Okay. Hold on. Yeah. You know, yeah, wow. You know, that makes a whole lot of sense, brother. That makes a whole lot of sense in terms of the discipline. And I hope our people are, because like you said, with the sexy red and everything that we're getting in the media, it's like we're getting the opposite of that. And what you know, what I noticed is that a lot of brothers who did not have sexual discipline, when they chose to like just spill a seed, or like you said, Hermes cup everywhere, I noticed their life started to go down the drain. Their life, it just out of nowhere, like as soon as they started making these undercover moves and moving and cheating on a woman and all that, their life just went down the drain. And it was like, you know, the magic that they had, they didn't have no more. It's like this your mojo or something. You lose your magic or something. And it's like something I can't explain, but I've seen happen over and over again, brother.
Most definitely. Because like I say, your sexual energy is a magnetic power. So when you connecting with many different, you know, other demographics of women or whatever, you know, you, like I said, you leak in energy. And then when you leak energy, you got different people pulling on your energy. This is where it's also harder for people to tap into their spiritual gifts.
Tell the people, in terms of the sun, the pulsating sun, and how much it benefits the carbon beings on planet Earth. I hear you, Rod Hayes, and a lot of other people, Billy Carson, talk about so many other beings now in the galaxy. Do they benefit as much as we benefit from the sun?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. So when you're talking about what you call it the Great Destroyer in the Bible, what you call it Planet Nibiru, or whatever you want to call it, you know, this is based upon the mythology of the Anunnaki and things like that.
BDELL, kick it with the family. I'll be right back, right? Kick it with the family.
Okay. Right. So it basically works in tandem when you're talking about the Anunnaki and things of that nature. So these beings, whether you call them, you know, disagreeable Anunnaki, or you got agreeable Anunnaki, you got the cherubim and seraphim in the Bible or whatever. So these beings that come from the 19th galaxy at the 8th planet of Planet Risk or whatever, when you study Dr. Malachi Z. York's, when you study his the great majority of his teachings, and when you read a lot of his publications, he actually talks about how, you know, the energy extraction matrix will basically be upgraded by way of the energy of the mothership, because the mothership in itself has its own equi system, and that own equi system has a different, you know, has a trilateral connection of the sun called Utu, Apsu, and Shamish. So you also, that's in correlation to the blue star Kachina, as I was telling you about. So you have the great purification process. The great purification, you got, are you familiar with the tri-solar systems?
Yes.
Yeah. So like I said, it works in tandem with our physiology. The best way I can explain it, you ever seen the color spectrum of Superman's garments? The color spectrum of Superman's garments is red, yellow, and blue. That is the trilateral connection of the 3 suns that's connected to the 19th galaxy, or the 5th dimension of Planet Risk. So you got the yellow sun, the red sun, and the blue sun. The only way, as I was telling you before, the implementation of plasma acceleration works in conjunction with the carbon body. It's a form of magnetism. So how did Superman get his power? He got his energy from the sun, right? That's why he has a serpent in the middle of a pyramid. So that's basically connected to your Kundalini psychosis, which is a spiritual phenomenon that works in conjunction with your chakra system. So you got to be in alignment in order to reap the benefits of these energies to connect with the sun. So as I was telling you before, these beings, as far as like, what do you want to call them? Anunnaki, extraterrestrials or whatever. This is a form of a spiritual upgrade. Just like you have to upgrade your phone, they're upgrading the ethers. That's what's happening.
Let, why you mentioned the 19th galaxy, I think, and the planet Ritz. How come I never heard anybody else mention planet Ritz but Dr. York? I'm just curious. Why do you think that is? Like, I've never heard anybody mention that except him and people who have followed him after. But initially, like, I haven't heard like the Elijah Muhammad or anybody mention that planet.
You know what? I'm not sure but according to a lot of his studies, he actually was, talking about how he, decoded a great majority of Sumerian mythology and Sumerian tablets and stuff. So I don't know if it's something within the infrastructure of his work where he came across. Some people get downloads, so I don't know if it's one of those things or whatever. But it's mighty funny because there's a movie, this TV series called "The Man Who Fell to Earth." Yeah. And he was basically an Anunnaki being. He came down to basically revitalize the infrastructure of a fallen world. And he actually came from a tri-solar system. And he was projected to the planet. And in one of the series or whatever, in one of the episodes, he said, the guy said he's looking for the Wizard of Risk. And I did a whole breakdown of the video. I got a whole video of it on my YouTube, but I did a whole breakdown of it.
Another question, because I got interrupted. In terms of what you was touching on a little earlier with the sun and sexual reproductive organs, I had Raul Nefa Men, and I asked him this question in terms of the Kundalini energy and that being a sexual energy, but also being a spiritual energy. Do you think, and you talking about the fluids and astral travel, when we have horny, the first thing a person does, they'll hit the porn site. They'll call up a shorty, or a girl will call up a dude, or
the tri-solar systems.
Yes.
Yeah. So like I said, it works in tandem with our physiology. The best way I can explain it, you ever seen the color spectrum of Superman's garments? The color spectrum of Superman's garments is red, yellow, and blue. That is the trilateral connection of the three suns that's connected to the 19th galaxy, or the fifth dimension of planet Risk. So you got the yellow sun, the red sun, and the blue sun. The only way, as I was telling you before, the implementation of plasma acceleration works in conjunction with the carbon body. It's a form of magnetism. So how does Superman get his power? He got his energy from the sun, right? That's why he has a serpent in the middle of a pyramid. So that's basically connected to your Kundalini psychosis, which is a spiritual phenomenon that works in conjunction with your chakra system. So you got to be in alignment in order to reap the benefits of these energies to connect with the sun. So as I was telling you before, these beings, as far as like, what do you want to call them? Anunnaki, extraterrestrials or whatever. This is a form of a spiritual upgrade. Just like you have to upgrade your phone, they're upgrading the ethers. That's what's happening.
Why you mentioned the 19th galaxy, I think, and the planet Ritz. How come I never heard anybody else mention planet Ritz but Dr. York? I'm just curious. Why do you think that is? Like, I've never heard anybody mention that except him and people who have followed him after. But initially, like, I haven't heard like the Elijah Muhammad or anybody mention that planet.
You know what? I'm not sure but according to a lot of his studies, he actually was, talking about how he, decoded a great majority of Sumerian mythology and Sumerian tablets and stuff. So I don't know if it's something within the infrastructure of his work where he came across. Some people get downloads, so I don't know if it's one of those things or whatever. But it's mighty funny because there's a movie, this TV series called "The Man Who Fell to Earth," and he was basically an Anunnaki being. He came down to basically revitalize the infrastructure of a fallen world, and he actually came from a tri-solar system, and he was projected to the planet. And in one of the series or whatever, in one of the episodes, he said, the guy said he's looking for the Wizard of Risk. And I did a whole breakdown of the video. I got a whole video of it on my YouTube, but I did a whole breakdown of it.
Another question, because I got interrupted. In terms of what you was touching on a little earlier with the sun and sexual reproductive organs, I had Raul Nefa Men, and I asked him this question in terms of the Kundalini energy and that being a sexual energy, but also being a spiritual energy. Do you think, and you talking about the fluids and astral travel, when we have horny, the first thing a person does, they'll hit the porn site. they'll call up a shorty, or a girl will call up a dude, or they'll look to find their girl or their wife or whoever, or a prostitute or whatever. If they horny, they trying to get that shit off. Do you think that it would be do you think that astral travel will be off the hook if instead of looking to have sex when we was horny, we decided to meditate? Like maybe that might be powerful, huh?
Yeah, most definitely, because like I said, it's all about magnetism. Like I said, that's how you upgrade the plasma acceleration that works on the Venturi effect. The Venturi effect is a velocity of gamma radiation that works in conjunction with your sexual energy. So when you just tapped into that energy, you're not leaking your fluids or whatever. You're not laying down with this one and that one. You're not looking at pornography on your cell phone and things of that nature. This is when you tap into those abilities, bro. Like, but a lot of people, I mean, it sounds simple, but a lot of people don't have that discipline. They just be like, man, I gotta do something. I gotta get these off. But a lot of people just not tapped into it. It's all about discipline. Discipline is mastery. Mastery is a form of equilibrium. Your equilibrium in itself is your God self to where you're balanced. 0 point energy. That's the reset. You reset by using your emotions as a navigation system. You don't let your sexual emotions subjugate you. That's the problem.
Right.
That's why people don't have a lot of discipline, is because of the emotional aspect that, we're subjugated by.
Indeed. What did you think? I didn't get a chance to ask you. I meant to ask you this when the show first started. I'm glad I just remembered. What were your thoughts? So much talk on metaphysics and spirituality and quantum physics. What were your thoughts on the Terrence Howard interview on Joe Rogan? What did you think about that?
I didn't get to see the whole thing. Only seen, most of it in increments or whatever, because I've been busy or whatever. But I haven't really seen a full interview. But what he was basically talking about, man, he's talking about some very interesting stuff, some stuff I've never heard of, and it's just something new to the table. You know what I'm saying? So as he was saying before, he's being watched for the great majority of the information that he's putting out, because he's talking about different elements and how it works in conjunction with the universe and stuff. And so it's it's different.
Right, indeed. Yeah. What I heard, I think I heard him mention it. I've heard you mention this, and I've heard Dr. B mention the noble gases. I believe the 9 noble gases on the periodic table. What exactly, for those who want to know, what exactly are the noble gases, and how is that connected to who we are?
Well, according to my independent research, you have 9 noble gases that works in conjunction with ether. You got carbon, lithium, sulfur, helium, hydrogen, exon, radon, argon, and krypton. Now, as I was telling you before, this coincides with Superman. He came from where? Planet Krypton. Like I said, all those noble gases is a form of gamma radiation that works in conjunction with the body. When you understand that, in the inception of time, they say that our skin used to be green or whatever, because that's the intrinsic, the intrinsic potent amount of melanin, I guess, neuromelanin activation or whatever. But like I said, that gamma radiation that works in conjunction with our, our physical structure. So those 9 noble gases in itself is one of those things where, like I said, it can cause creation or it can cause destruction. So another thing that, that's in alignment, because there's going to be a configuration of 4 gas planets that's going to give off those 9 noble gases around October of this year.
Wow.
2024, right before the election. So it's kind of crazy how they haven't been campaigning for the election, because, as I was telling you before, ether, the 9 noble gases of ether has the ability to cause destruction, or it can cause creation. It can spark creation. So the 9 noble gases, as I was telling you, the dodecahedron, which is connected to the magnetic field of the planet, ether in itself amalgamates with the 4 basic elements, which is earth, air, water, fire, which is the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. It's basically the same thing. So when you have those 4 gas giants in configuration around planet Earth, it can, like I said, it can cause many different earthquakes. It can cause volcanoes, which are basically the pimples of planet Earth. It can cause, many different things. It causes many different afflictions. So that's why I was saying, like, ether in itself, those 9 noble gases, it's a gift and a curse. The planet is upgrading. The planet has to go through a birthing process. So I understand that people don't want to hear, the planet is going through calamity. They don't want to hear that. But like I said, Just like a woman, when she's giving birth to a child, she has to go through that process. It's going to hurt. You know what I'm saying? It's very, you know, it's not, you know, it doesn't feel very well. You're feeling uncomfortable. That's what the planet. The planet is in a state of uncomfortability right now because the planet has to transition by way of the ether, by way of the noble gases that's hitting the planet.
Yeah, man. Yeah, this is wow. This. Let me ask you this: what would you describe for somebody? You know, we keep hearing the term ether, and even hip hop heads heard the term ether years ago when Nas made a song against Jay-Z. What would be another what would you describe ether as for somebody who's having difficulty in understanding exactly what is ether?
Ether is thought. Ether is one of those things where it doesn't have corporeal form. But like I said, but when you trap ether by subatomic particles of photons light, that's where you have a compressed energy to where it creates physical matter. So where you're able to speak things into existence. Ether, like I said, that's the first thing that was ever in existence, because it's actually faster than the speed of light, because light travels at 186,000 miles per square feet. So ether is thought. It's thought forms that turns into physical matter by way of trapped photons, trapped light. So ether is your thoughts projected within the simulation. Because when you understand that the binary code system of the matrix, like I said, it's a dualistic paradox that works in tandem with zeros and ones. So the zero is a representation of the divine feminine energy, right? Which is basically the womb of creation, dark matter energy. Then you got the one. The one is a representation of photons, which is a representation of the physical state and the masculine state of the man. So that's, like I said, we live in a dualistic paradox that works on a mathematical sequence of zeros and ones. But like I said, the ether in itself has the ability, when you speak certain things into existence, it's kind. You ever heard of gematria or study like Vedic gematria or whatever? Everything has a numerical system. Everything, whether you speak it, whether you think it, it's all connected to the ethers within the simulation.
Right. Wow. I was listening to something. I think it was Manly P. Hall. You ever heard of Manly P. Hall before?
Yeah, matter of fact, I got this. I use this book right here. Secret. You see how thick it is. I read it. I read it all once, but I use it as a reference point. There's a lot of information in it. Secret Ages of All Teachings by Manly P. Hall. And he was I think he was a Prince Hall Freemason. But this book, man, it talks about the shift. It talks about pulsating energies of the sun. It talks about the upgrading of the fifth dimensional civilizations, like I said, but it all works in conjunction with that damn sun. That's what it's all about.
Indeed. Well, I think it was him. I was watching something on YouTube. They had an audio book version of one of his books. I think it was him. And they was talking about he mentioned ether, but he was talking about the power of breath and breathing. And he said they told us what we're breathing is oxygen, but if we really knew what we were breathing, we would appreciate and take breathing much more serious. So let me ask you, in terms of the breath and in terms of breathing, they say, oh, you're breathing oxygen. Is there something more spiritual, more happening than what they're telling us when we're inhaling and exhaling? Is there something more than what they're telling us with that?
It definitely is, because when oxidation in itself basically breaks down the hemoglobin cellular structure. Yeah. So when it breaks down the hemoglobin cellular structure in your physiology or whatever, that means that the body is not able to upgrade itself on an intrinsic level when you're talking about immortalized cell lines, because the oxygen in itself is a part of the spiritual cutoff. Just like you know how when in X-Men, when you see a superhero or whatever, when they get their arm cut off or whatever, they're able to regenerate themselves, but you're not able to tap into that energy because the oxygen breaks down the hemoglobin. It breaks down those cellular structures. So like I said, oxidation in itself, basically, it's kind of works in conjunction with the aspect of how people say that you're not supposed to drink, H2O, whatever, because you're supposed to be drinking hydrogen-based water and just get your water from the fruit. It basically works in tandem with that as well. So oxidation breaks down your genetical codes, actually.
Wow. Indeed.
This is
What
why we age.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think with this pulsating sun, do you think that will affect how we age? Like in
Oh
terms,
yeah.
maybe people won't age, or they'll look young at a much later, or will live longer. Because I remember Billy talks about with the Anunnaki, there was like a cap put on our telomeres or something like that, where we only could live up to a certain age. So how is that impacting us and what we call aging?
Like I said, when you understand, now this is in correlation to the mental Stargate. Now you have the neuroendocrine transducer. So when you understand, when you have the neuroendocrine transducer activated, it basically transmutes the carbonated body into a crystalline state. So when you're able to crystallize, that your cells don't break down as much as they did, during that process. So I don't know if it'll take us 20 years, 40 years, or 50 years to get to that energy, but crystallization has to, the carbon body has to transmute into a crystalline state. It has to happen. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of part of the prophecy, because like I said, the planet is going back into the time where you had a fifth dimensional civilization where people were able to live for thousands of years. So that same energy is coming right back to the planet. It may not happen, during this time period or whatever, but like I said, it may take, another, 100 years, 50 years. You know what I'm saying?
No, definitely.
So it's an upgrading of genetics.
Yeah, yeah. When you in your other video, when we're familiar with the term Stargate, and you mentioned the mental Stargate. How exactly do we activate this mental Stargate?
You activate it by separating yourself from the conscious energy grid of the three-dimensional world. So everything in third density basically subjugates the mind. So as I was telling you before, you have to get away from the lunar energy. You got to use your emotions as a navigation system. Use the material plane as a form of evolution. So, like I said, sometimes you got to use the matrix in order to get out of it. So, like I said, a lot of people be like, well, I don't like materialism and stuff like that. Sometimes you got to spend money in order to create your own energetic space to where you don't need outside stimulation. That's why I build up my energetic space. To where this is kind of like my, just like, you got monks, they got their own. This is like my tomb right here, you know what I'm saying? I got my TV room. So it's like I said, you got to use that energy of the material world and you transmute it, not because you have a veneration and a credence, for materialistic items. But like I said, you gotta transgress that energy. You gotta use it as a form of a positive energy. So like I said, I don't have to go out and do nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like I go out to the gym, I get some sun, but I want to maintain in my energetic space. This is my cipher.
Indeed. Yeah, that our home, I think we don't understand how important it is to design our home to our liking spiritually and just psychologically, so we could be as comfortable as possible, because that's the best place to tap in spiritually at home. That's that's your throne. So you got to design it how you want. So yeah, I'm definitely in favor for that, my brother.
That's a fact. That's a fact because your sacred energetic space is a emulation of what's going on with you mentally and spiritually. Yeah. So if your room is a mess, your life is a mess. Your car is a mess, your life is a mess. Your house is a mess, your life is a mess. Because like I said, that same energy embarks upon real life situations.
Yeah. That's why I think I was talking to you before. I'm not sure who. And brother was saying how we make sure before you leave that house, make sure you make your bed. And it'll make a world of a difference. Something as simple as that'll make a world of a difference. And when I started doing it, I was like, damn, he's right. It's a completely different vibe. When you come home and your bed is made, whole different vibe, yo.
Most definitely.
Yeah, shit is amazing. Let me talk about since we're talking about the sun and this pulsating sun, and people are reporting seeing so many things in the sky, UFOs and everything. Yeah, I heard you was talking about UFOs. What in terms of UFOs being cloaked, what would you say is going on right now in the skies with UFOs? Are they cloaked as clouds? Are they cloaked as something else? Like, how does this cloaking technology work with UFOs, where there may be one right in the sky, but I can't see it?
Okay. Well, when you understand that the nimbic system works in conjunction with the nimbostratus, real clouds are basically formed by way of extraction of radiation from the ground and is transmuted into the nimbostratus. So the cloaking technology of UFOs happens when you have UFOs going into 4th octave ether. When you go into 4th octave ether, ether is a form of a gas state. That ether has the ability to extract all electrical devices in order to cloak itself. It basically extracts energy from everything in 3rd density. So that's why when you watch the movie Nope, in order for the ship to cloak itself, all the energy, the electrical devices basically shut down. But when it was able to show itself or whatever, that's when electricity and technology, it basically didn't shut down. So 4th octave ether, it basically extracts all energy from technological devices to cloak itself. So when you see a cloaked, UFO or whatever, it has the ability to basically extract energy from everything in 3rd density. That's what it's pulling. It's pulling on energy.
So is this why they're often over water, because they extract the electricity from the water?
I'm not sure. That's a good question, though. That's a good question. That's definitely a good question. But that's how they that's how they cloak themselves. They pulling on all the energies. So like I said, that also correlates with the energy, the electrical grid system. There's been so many things going on with our devices. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't in my house. You know what I'm saying? Like the electricity's been going bad. I thought I had to call the electrician. I thought maybe I had some bad outlets or something. But what's happening is these new energies that's on the planet ever since the solar eclipse, you're getting a lot more glitching. And I put a video in my last video, the mental Stargate. It shows you in the nighttime, there's a guy, he had a ring camera, and he was basically showing like the front of his yard, and you look into the sky, and it was showing, it went from nighttime, and then the background, the sky went green to where the UFO was able to show itself. Like I said, gamma radiation, ether, by way of the energy of the sun, has the ability to manipulate the grid system. That goes all the way back to the pulsating energy of the sun.